I wanted the fame. I wanted the pretty girls come up and say, "Hi, I see that you're good at Centipede."
This is Walter Day.
He became the center of the video game universe.
He was the first to realize the competitive nature of gaming.
I'm leaving the video game industry to be a musician.
I said, "You're not going anywhere."
Didn't I tell you, you, never not to lie?
Hello, I'm Alise Chaffins, and I'm here today with Walter Day and Billy Mitchell, stars of the new documentary Arcades and Love Songs, The Ballad of Walter Day, coming to video on demand on June 9th. Thank you both so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alise.
Yeah. Walter, as someone who didn't start the work that I'm doing now until I was almost 50, your story about pursuing your dreams really resonated with me. Can you talk a little bit about how it felt to get on stage and perform the music that you'd been working on for so long?
Well, the actual emergence on the stage was quite an interesting experience because I've talked in front of big crowds of people and I never get nervous. But when I got on the stage to sing for the first time in my life, I was really, not quite in shock, but I was so worried that I was going to forget the words to the songs, and my singing voice, which is a brand new singing voice that I'd been working on for a couple of months, that I wouldn't be adequate. But it all worked out, as you can see in the movie. And it was a lot of fun. And by the time it was over, I relaxed, was really into it. My voice was noticeably better by the time I sang the fourth song, noticeably smoother and relaxed and sweeter.
Yeah, definitely. And Billy, you've kind of known Walter basically your entire adult life. Can you just talk about what it was like to see him up there performing in this just kind of different role than what you'd seen him in before?
Well, first of all, Billy's not an adult, okay? We got to get that straight.
Okay, well.
But I hope to be one day. Well, whenever Walter and I get together and speak, there's always the perception that's actually a reality. Walter, you'll ask him a question, he'll tell you the truth, and then I'll tell you the real story.
Okay.
The real story. He walked out on stage, and I mean, he was rattling like an empty cage. I could see it in his face, I could see it in his body language, I could see it actually with him holding the microphone. But to give him credit, by the time he did reach the final song, he was completely relaxed, and my humor was that, when you go out to eat and you eat a pizza, boy, nothing tastes as good as that first slice, as the pizza goes on. Well, with him, it was the other way. It truly was each song, each performance got better as it wore on, simply because he felt more in his element. He told me ahead of time, gee, what if I mess up the lyrics? Gee, what if I don't remember things? He doesn't forget anything. Okay. You can tell him, the day you got married, and he can tell you where he was on that day in that year. I mean, He just knows. So I was laughing at him, the idea that he was so nervous about those things. But the idea of being out of your element and going up on stage and then having to find your comfort zone, that was so much in my face. I'm surprised it wasn't in everybody's face. But again, I've seen that more than anyone. But it was funny to actually watch him overcome it so quickly.
Yeah, one of the things that I really appreciated was just watching that feedback from the audience as the concert progressed. Can you just talk about what it was like to accept that feedback, Walter, and Billy, just to kind of what it was like to kind of be able to encourage your friend in that moment?
Was that a Walter question or a Billy question?
No, it's a both question. What it was like to kind of feel that encouragement from the crowd.
I'll say this. The film is going to show in Fairfield, Iowa, June 29th, okay. June 30th. And it's like a gift for the town. It's like how the idea it takes a village to grow up a child or something like that. This whole town made that movie. It was populated by people from all walks of life in Fairfield, Iowa, who participated in it. So it was kind of a loving memory of just the Fairfield community. So that's one of the richest, most valuable things that I think other people are going to get out of it, that it put on the map for all time, our town. But And it was so much fun to see how people interacted and how warm they were and uplifting and how supportive and how respectful they were. I didn't get booed at all, and they gave me two standing ovations, which took me by surprise.
Yeah,
Yep.
and Billy, can you just talk about like seeing your friend and being able to encourage him in that?
Well, it was funny because he's up on stage. I know he's prepared this. I've talked to him about it most every day for years and for extended period of time. I knew what was coming, and I had my own guesstimations about the level of success, which were good. And every time he would say something or do something, and there would be applause or there'd be the standing ovations that he speaks of, I remember to the point that I was annoyed, like, if you could read my thoughts, I'm saying, okay, people, can you shut up now so he can get to the next song? You know, I mean, I wanted to move along because, I knew the performance was coming. I thought it would be done well. And everybody wants to, extend all these hearts and flowers to him and delay things. Can't you do that at the end? That's what I'm thinking at the moment. But yes, he correctly, there were people, there were standing ovations more than once, but there were compliments, very flattering questions coming from the crowd. And it's funny, it was almost to the point that it gave me a level of impatience. So that explains that.
Yeah, yeah. So one of my favorite moments in the documentary is Walter, when you went to the community college and, for that father of esports kind of recognition. And Amber talks a little bit about, kind of separate from that, about how esports changed her life. Can you just talk about what it felt like to hear about your impact on her life? And I'm sure you've heard that, through the years, but like specifically in that moment.
Well, there's always the general perception that whatever I did and Billy did and all of us original founders of esports did years ago, that it should lead to something positive and uplifting to some people's lives. And so it was so poignant to have a crystallized example suddenly brought to us to show us how someone became enriched, inspired, uplifted, and motivated to make their life better and accomplish something, especially a lady, a young lady, a small, petite young lady in the middle of all these, this male-dominated esports industry. So it was very, very rich moment. I think that's going to be one of the most telling points from this movie. That's going to get a lot of attention as this movie circulates. That this young lady dominated, at least in one game for one moment, a male-dominated game. So that's very, very amazing to see how that plays out, isn't it? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, for me, that was definitely the most like poignant moment in the film. Like I loved seeing the performance, but like that moment just kind of, yeah, was just such a beautiful, yeah, like testimony to your legacy, I guess. Yeah.
It's so interesting. People people talk about that moment and they talk about Shane and I reuniting and hugging and kissing and saying I love you and just amazing number of women in the crowd and even guys start crying. But it's a very, very sensitive moment. It's a sensitive film. It's like I've said in other interviews, it's not an action film. At no moment does an alien burst from my chest or Godzilla make an appearance, you know? It's all about finer feeling, heartfelt values.
Hmm. Yeah, well, kind of like bouncing off of that, like Billy, that the King of Kong really kind of presents you as this villain almost. But like in Arcades and Love Songs, we really get to see a much kinder side of you. Can you talk about what it was like just to kind of see yourself portrayed in such disparate ways and how, if that's had any kind of impact on how you see yourself?
Well, the King of Kong, um, yes, it presented me in a certain light, but remember, it only showed the kinder, better side of me. So I always tell people, if they think the film was skewed, it was skewed to make me look like a nicer guy than I am. But Arcades and Love Songs is closer to real life. And King of Kong, forgive me for saying this, that's entertainment. It's there to create drama. It's there to create conversation and make an interesting movie that you remember. This movie was more a reality of Walter's life and his journey. So there was nothing intended in this movie other than straight sincerity. I'm actually somewhat astonished that they were able to take such a reality and put it into something that's so interesting, that has drama, that has emotion, because it's absolutely the truth as to what happened in his life.
Mhm.
That's usually not the case in movies. Usually that's entertainment. There's Hollywood in there. Yes, Arcades and Love Songs is closer to reality. It's closer to our everyday life. And quite honestly, there's an old humor that it's more fun to be bad than good. And that's probably true. But it is fun to be good too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Um, Walter, can you just talk a little bit about what it was like, not just to see Shane after all those years, but like just to be able to sing in front of her and to share those songs that have been on your heart for so long?
Well, um, it's a very moving thing. So I too get tears in my eyes when I see a reuniting. So it's very sensitive, tender, and who knows what our future could be together. We haven't, like I've said in other interviews, we haven't run off to Las Vegas together yet. Because I'm turning 76 in just a matter of a few days.
No.
So, I don't know. I don't know if a relationship actually is on the horizon for me or not, but it was very touching, very sensitive, and very surprising. Because when the movie was first beginning to be made, Shane was not a part of it. And Seth Gordon, the famous director, he said we have to have Shane in this movie, and his perspective was the right perspective, because once Shane entered the movie, it made it a thousand times better.
Mhm.
Because Shane and Amber Lothar are like the two incredible goalposts of the whole game, because they bring such genuine sweetness and sincerity, and also amazing sense of expansion of all opportunities. So Shane just helps me bring the heart into the movie, and Amber brings the incredible overcoming of all obstacles in the movie. So along with me getting up and singing eventually. But those are some of the basic building blocks, the foundation for the movie. And my head just spins from it, because it's just so amazing to have a movie made on your life. I mean, how many people do you know who are friends who have had movies made on their life? It's just so unusual. So it's kind of like almost like overshadowing.
Yeah, not
Well,
just one, but a couple. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead, Billy.
let me expand on that a little bit. Like I said, Walter, he'll tell you the truth. And now I'll tell you the real story. Having been there, as we say, at that time in 1986, several years later, remember that several years later, all the way to today, several years later, when Shane came back and said hello to him and, expressed her regret and her explanation, even at that point, just because of Walter's personality, he did not have any bitterness in him whatsoever. None. Zero. And of course, he does not today. So I guess I'm saying that's just part of his nature. And so the healing process that you hear coming out here, I don't want to say it wasn't difficult, because most of us can't do what he did, but it's just a part of his nature. And it's not something that suddenly came on at the end here. It was something that he embraced immediately. He felt the pain from the other side. And of course, obviously, he had his memories and his experiences.
So, just as we're kind of wrapping up here, what would you want audiences to kind of know about your friendship with each other? Because I think that's such a like foundational part of this film as well, is the way the two of you, kind of have, yeah, just spent so much of your lives together. So, yeah, what would you want audiences to know about that?
You go ahead first, Walter, so I can throw you under the bus.
Well, one of the most amazing things is the development of twin galaxies, though founded by me. It was actually inspired by numerous people, who believed in it as much as I did, and who would do anything to make the growth of esports and see just the spiritual evolution of esports happen. And Billy was one of the main people. That's why he's been so close to me, because he stood there side by side with me as I went through each action step to try and bring early pioneering esports to life. So we have that bond and that shared experience and that shared set of memories that have made us be unified as friends, but also as a co-creators of the pioneering age of esports. So we have that as a common element. We can't
Well,
paint
one of the things that I always say, and it's just the only way I can put it into words. In the beginning, we shared a vision of what we called at the time competitive gaming, which grew into being called esports. We had a common vision that it would become that big, and we were running forward, trying to push and expand the idea and have people embrace it and have it grow to a reality. And I always say that we didn't always know where we were running. We were just running forward, looking for answers and pushing for progress. And somehow it always unveiled itself in front of us. And I kept saying to myself, sometimes it doesn't matter if you succeed, if you have fun. But then we would have some level of success. But we were always having fun. We were always having travel. We were always going places. We're both history buffs, so we'd go somewhere and we talk about the history of whatever geographical location we were on. And it really became fun, Walter, when he wrote his first book. And he wrote his book and he wrote about the experiences. And Walter said, when I get done writing this book, Walter says he's going to be the most famous name in video game history. And he says, Billy, you'll be second. And I thought, yeah, that's cool. How'd that work out, Walter?
Billy is 1,000 times more famous than anybody else in the video game industry.
So I like to find these little points and I like to pick on them. But I always tell people that what Walter did, me and all the other people that supported him, all the other players, we could not have done it without him. I mean, we couldn't have. Howsoever, what he did, he could have done it without us, but he could not have done it as well. He could not have been as effective. So each side very much complements the other. And I don't lose sight of that, except when I'm picking on him, then I lose total sight of him.
Awesome. Well, again, I just thank you both so much for taking some time here today to talk to me and for making just such a fantastic movie. And I wish you well.